All right, so let us begin. So, first of all, good evening, everyone. My name is Shantanu Shubham. I am the host for today's session for all of you in this webinar called Induction to Coding. So, before we start, just want to give a quick introduction about myself. So, hi, I am currently an instructor and mentor at Coding Ninjas, and I'm also a software developer at Schlumberger. So that's about me, and let's get to know some people from the audience. So, requesting the audience members, could you please tell me which year and which branch you are from? I'm mostly assuming most of you are joining in from the first year, freshly joining college, a lot of enthusiasm, isn't it? Am I right about it? Isn't the crowd from the first year this time? Can someone please tell me about it? All right. So I can see that the crowd is mostly from first year. That's really cool. All right. So when we talk about induction to coding, right? So that is basically us trying to give you an insight about how coding is like, and what is the reason that today we are talking about coding in the first place. Like, we have a lot of engineering sectors, right? And each and every engineering sector or each and every engineering branch is unique in its own way. But the thing about coding is what we're talking about today. And the reason why we're talking about coding today is about the relevance of coding in today's world. So even if you hail from mechanical engineering or civil engineering or aeronautical engineering or biotechnology or whatsoever engineering background you come from, coding is something which is definitely in one way or the other incorporated in your streams of engineering. And that is the reason why coding is so relevant today, and is again another big reason why we are talking about it today in the first place. So, as a software engineer, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce all of you towards coding and to show you the world of coding, how immensely beautiful it can be, and sometimes immensely frustrating it can be. So, let's talk about it. So, when we talk about coding, we first of all understand that coding is some type of instruction, right, that we give to a computer. So, coding is a verb which comes from the word code, right? So, what is the meaning of code? Code is basically a cryptic message. Code is something which is like a cryptic message or a secret, which we talk about, which means something else, or should I say, which is something else but means something else. So, in case of computers, ever since we were kids, we have been studying that in case of computers, a computer understands instructions only in 0 and 1, right? A computer understands instructions only in 0 and 1, which is binary instructions. So we as humans, we definitely have tried our level best in order to understand binary equations ourselves, but we're not very fluent with it. Like, for example, if I tell you what is the binary of 1001, probably you will be able to calculate it, but you might not be very quick to do that. So whenever, as a human, we have to provide an instruction to a computer, it might not be very quick. So even if we are clear with what instruction to provide, or even if we know exactly what instructions to provide in binary, it will not be very simple, or it will not be very easy for us to provide the instructions in a faster amount of time. So this, like suppose if I have to tell what is y1 plus 2 to a computer. So if I want my computer to give me the sum of 1 and 2, then basically I will have to give the number 1 as binary and the number 2 as binary. And then whatever value I'm getting as my result, I need to convert that from binary to decimal. So this is what is a very basic scenario, right? But this is a very inefficient scenario because it requires human effort of calculating the binary of the decimal numbers, that is 1 and 2, and then calculate the decimal value of the binary number of 3, which we have gotten as the sum. So this happens to be a very inefficient way of interacting with a computer, because of which we have languages in computer which help us to translate human level instructions into machine level instructions and vice versa. So that is why we have the concept of programming languages, or should I say coding languages. So in today's world, there are many programming languages that we are knowing about today. So you must have heard the names of languages like C, C++, Java, JavaScript, Python, then Rust, Go, Dart, Ruby on Rails, Kotlin. There are so many languages, right? And I'm pretty sure you must have heard the names of at least 2 or 3 languages out of these. So each of these languages are written, in such a way that they convert human level instructions into machine level instructions. Like, for example, today, if I have to talk, or like in this case, I'm communicating with all of you right now. So I'm using my language of communication as English. But in case if I want, I can also use my language of communication as Hindi. I can also use my language of communication as Sanskrit or Marathi or French or Bengali or Tamil or Telugu or whatsoever language, right? As long as all of us understand the same language, as long as all of us understand the same language, we can communicate in that language very well. Similarly, to make a computer understand a certain instruction, we can use any language. Okay, so as long as you are comfortable using that language, you can very well move ahead and use that language in order to provide instructions to your computer, right? So that is what is all about programming. So programming, or should I say coding, is just a way with the help of which we provide some instructions to a computer, and then we expect the computer to give us a certain amount of output. That's all we talk about in coding. Let me just give you one small example. One second, let me just open a Excel sheet and share my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Can somebody please confirm from the management if my screen is visible? All right, great. So that now that my screen is visible, let me just give you one small scenario. Let me just make this slightly bigger. Like you can see, I'm trying to share an Excel sheet over here. So let me just go ahead and do this. Okay. Let us say that you have a data entry job. Very simple scenario. Let's say you have a data entry job. So in a data entry job, what can you do? Suppose there are three columns: name, okay. Then there's another column, let's say class, and then let's say there's another column called address. Okay, so very simple. Now let's start writing some names. So let's write Kajal. Okay, she is in class, let's say 12, and let's say her address is Noida, for example. Okay, then let's talk about pay. So let's write Shantanu. Shantanu is in class 11. His address is, let's say, Kolkata. Okay, then right, let's talk about somebody else. Let's write Alex is in class 8, and Alex lives in, let's say, Mumbai. Okay, so we can have a lot of data like this, right? We can have a lots of data, right? Let's say we have similarly like this kind of data. Let's say we have 100 columns. Let's say we have 100 rows. Sorry, let's say we have 100 rows like this. Okay, let's say we have 100 rows like this. Now out of this 100 rows, suppose we want to do something with it. So let me just open a notepad. Let me just open. Yeah, okay, so my notepad is open now. Let's say we want to make something out of it. Let's say we want to do something like that. You have to read this Excel file and you have to copy the data which is present in Excel file into your notepad file. Suppose that is what you want to do. So this is what you want to do. You want to write name, and then you want to write Kajal. Okay, so name space Kajal, and then you want to write class colon 12, and then you want to write address is equals to Noida. Okay, then this is one row. Then suppose you want to add two extra spaces, and then you want to do it the same thing again. So name Shantanu, then class as 11, and that's right, address as Mumbai, sorry, Kolkata. Okay, then the third one would be name as Alex, then class as 8, and then address as, let's say, Mumbai. Okay, so in this case, because we had only three rows, row number 1, row number 2, and row number 3, that is why we have only created 3 entries over here, right? We have only created 3 entries over here. Similarly, if we have, let's say, 1000 rows like this, then we have to create 1000 entries over here, right? We have to create 1000 entries over here. So suppose it's your job that you will get Excel sheets like this, where every Excel sheet will contain 1000 rows. Okay, where every Excel sheet will contain 1000 rows, and you have to convert that Excel sheet into a notepad file like this. Okay, then can you guys tell me how much amount of time it will take for you to do this manually? Any guesses, anybody? Don't you think it will take a lot amount of time? Anybody from the management, if you can help me read the answers of the audience. How much amount of time do you think it will take for you? Let's say you have 10 sheets where every sheet has 1000 rows, where every sheet has 1000 rows like this, and you have to take this value from the Excel sheet and then you have to paste it in your notepad. Then according to you, how much time it would take? Probably a day, or maybe 2 days, right? Or maybe 3 days, not more than that. Am I right about it? Yes, no? 3 days, 4 days? Okay, let's have an assumption of, let's say it takes 1 day. Suppose 1 day, you're very efficient, very fast. Suppose it takes 1 day. So if you convert 10 sheets if you convert 10 sheets like this in 1 day, suppose you get 1,000 rupees. Okay, suppose you get 1,000 rupees. So if a company hires people, if a company hires people who can take data from Excel sheet and then convert it into a notepad file, like I have shown you over here, like in this case, then, and suppose if a company has to pay 1,000 rupees to every employee and a company has 20 such employees, then the company is paying 20,000 rupees, right? Then a company is paying 20,000 rupees. But you know what? This is a kind of very repetitive kind of task, right? We can just write code. We can just write code to read the Excel file and then take all this data from Excel file and paste it in Notepad. So this is one of the biggest examples, or should I say one of the biggest applications of coding in reality, where a lot of human task or a lot of human effort is reduced by writing some ample amount of code. So instead of paying 20,000 rupees per month to each and every employee, what we can do is that pay 20,000 rupees to one person who can write code which can convert your Excel file into a notepad file one time. And in that case, a company is in profit, right? Because they don't have to pay a lot of amount of money in a continuous fashion. They just have to pay it once and the job is always getting done without even taking extra time. So if a person takes 1 day of time to convert the 10 sheets, which each with 1,000 rows, probably a piece of code will do this in 10 seconds. Probably a piece of code will do this in 10 seconds. So just imagine the time difference between 1 day and 10 seconds. So this is the biggest application of coding. So this is one of the smaller applications that I was talking about. There can be many applications, and technically everything which we do today is related to coding in one way or the other. So let me just stop sharing my screen. And now let's get back to the conversation. So I was just talking about how we can use coding to reduce a lot of manual effort, right? So this is one of the biggest applications of coding. Apart from this, as a person, if you are somebody who is interested towards coding, then there are certain amounts of things that you will have to do. So like I was saying that to convert human level instructions into machine level instructions, we need a programming language. So the first and foremost step that one person must do is to learn a programming language and how to run the code of that programming language into their own system. Okay, so let me just give you one small scenario. So suppose, let's say you are, which you are definitely. So we are all human beings, right? We are all human beings. So when we were younger, so we used to go to school, and probably for most of us, school was the first place where we started to learn English, right? School was the first place where we started to learn English. And because we have learned English in school, that is the reason why I am able to speak to you in English right now, and you are able to understand what I'm speaking right now, right? That is the biggest reason because of which we are able to have this conversation. Let's say that you never learned English. Let's say that you never learned English. If you never learned English, despite the fact that you are a human being and you're capable of understanding English, you cannot understand English because you have never learned it, right? Just like that, whenever we talk about a programming language, your computer might not understand a programming language if you don't tell it how to understand it. Now, this might sound very weird. Suppose you are a person who codes in Java. Okay, so you have to write some Java code on your machine. When you write some Java code on your machine, so you'll have to tell your machine to run this Java code. So the first thing is that, does your machine understand how to understand Java code? Does your machine understand how to run Java code? Probably not. By default, a machine does not know how to run Java code. So you'll have to tell, or you will have to install a software in your machine which can let your machine understand how to run a Java code. Okay, so for this, you have to, or you need something like a compiler or an interpreter, which helps your machine to convert programming languages code into your machine instructions. That is what is the whole deal about a programming language. And this is true for every single programming language. So programming languages like Java, JavaScript, C, C++, Python, etc., each of these programming languages require you to have an extra software on your system with the help of which you can run that certain programming languages code on your system. Let me just give you one more example. So I'm sharing my screen one more time. Share screen. Okay. Just let me know when you can see my screen. Just one moment. Okay, can you see my screen? So currently I'm opening Microsoft Edge on my screen. Can you guys see it? Can somebody please confirm? Yes, no? All right. Okay, so now that you can see my screen, I will tell you one thing very weird thing about. So I was saying that you need a software on your system in order to run some program, right? Which is written in a certain language. So whenever we talk about languages, there are many languages, right? One of those languages is called JavaScript. One of those languages is called JavaScript. So JavaScript is one of those weird languages that can run on your system without even you having a software to run it on your system. Because now, why is that? Because every browser, be it Microsoft Edge, be it Google Chrome, be it Safari, be it Mozilla Firefox, be it Opera, be it Brave, etc., any browser is already capable of running and understanding JavaScript code. Let me just show you with an example. So if I inspect and if I go to console, here I can write, sorry, not here. Here I can write very valid JavaScript code. Let me just try and show this to you by writing code to run, to basically add two numbers. Suppose if I create a number called var first number is equals to 5. Okay. Then I will write var second number is equals to 6. Okay. Now let me just write a sum. So var sum is equals to first number plus second number. Okay. So now I can just print it. So to print it, we write console.log, and then I can just write sum. So if I press enter, you will see the value is 11. And now we got the value as 11. So our machine basically calculated the value of 5 plus 6. So this is actually us humans giving human level instructions to a computer. So now in my computer, I'm using Microsoft Edge in order to compile some JavaScript code. Microsoft Edge or any browser is already capable of understanding and compiling JavaScript code. I cannot run any other languages code here. Like I cannot run Java, I cannot run C++, I cannot run Python, etc., but I can only run JavaScript. So this is one good thing about JavaScript. Okay, so but also if we want, we can also run JavaScript code outside a browser. That is also possible, but for that we will need that software that I was talking about. Okay, so this was very basic introduction about coding, what are the prerequisites, how it basically works. Now I will talk to you about how you can learn coding and how you can become really better at coding, and what is the right way that you should be taking in order to become a software engineer like me. Okay, so like I was saying, the first step has to be learning a programming language. For example, you would not be able to speak and understand English, or probably you would not be able to understand the webinar, or should I say, I will also not be into this webinar talking to all of you guys if had I not learned English in my school. So only because I can understand English and you can understand English and I can speak English and you can also speak English is the reason why we are all present in this webinar. Just like that, you will have to start with learning a programming language first. Now, this is a confusing point because there are many programming languages, and the question is, what programming languages must I learn? Should I learn more than one programming language, or should I just only learn one programming language? If I should learn only one programming language, then what is the language that I should learn? Many confusions might be popping up in your head. So as somebody who is working in the industry, my suggestion would be that you can start your programming language or programming journey with any language of your choice, to be honest. But if you take my suggestion, then I would suggest you that you start with either with C++ or with Java. Because C++ and Java are one of, or should I say, two of those programming languages which can help you understand the concepts of programming in a very, very refined way. Okay, so if you learn programming with the help of C++ or Java, then it can help you to understand programming in a very, very refined way. And even in future, if you have to switch to any other language of your choice, it will be a very easy task for you to do it. So that is the first place, or that is the first step that you must be taking in order to learn a programming language. The second step would be that whenever you're learning a programming language, try to learn and understand how this programming language is working. For example, like I was saying that there are multiple programming languages. Every programming language does not work exactly the same way. Okay, so like for example, let's talk about C++ and Java only. So C++ is a programming language. Java is also a programming language. So the way C++ works is very different from the way Java works. Okay, so when we were all kids, we all had that smartphone, right? Touchscreen smartphones of the past, not the current Android phones. I'm not talking about those. When we had that smaller touchscreen phone like Samsung Champ or any other Samsung phones or whatever touchscreen phones we have back then from Micromax or Samsung or whatsoever, we all used to love games in those phones, right? Like Bounce was there, and then many other smaller, Asphalt was there, etc., etc. Many games were there back then. So remember that whenever we used to open those games, we used to see a symbol of a coffee mug or a teacup, right? And that was a symbol of coming from Java. Okay, so Java happened to be one of those languages which could run on multiple machines. So it was capable of running on a smaller device like a mobile touchscreen mobile phone as well. It is also the language which is used to which is basically running on the softwares present in your air conditioners, in your washing machines, in your refrigerators, in your toys. Okay, so Java happens to be one of those languages which is platform independent, whereas C++ is not like that. Now, this is one example where I'm trying to tell you that every language does not work exactly the same way. So whatever language you're choosing, try to understand how that language is working. That is going to be the second part. And the third part is going to be understanding how to use this language in order to write the logic that I'm trying to build. Okay, so that is the third part. So learning a certain syntax of language is not the only thing which we have to do. For example, when we were at school, we started learning English by learning alphabets, right? We first started with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Then we came to parts of speech like noun, pronoun, etc. Then we came to sentences. Then we came to, like, once we started to grow, then we started to learn about nouns, modals, etc., conditionals, prepositions, etc. Then we came even ahead, and then we started to write letters and essays. And then after that, we used to start writing emails and things like that. So all of those kind of things we used to do, right? So this is like progressive. This is like progressive, right? It all happens in a progress. So what I'm trying to say is that whenever you are trying to learn a programming language, once you're done with learning how the programming language is written and things like that, you should be in a position where you're able to write your own instructions in programming language. For example, let's say you want to just run your program in order to add two numbers. So you should be able to write this program on your own, right? So learning a programming language is not equal to writing code in programming language. Now, this might sound very weird because writing program in programming language requires you to use the logic which is present in your head, or the idea which is present in your head, to actually translate it into the real life code. That is what we need. For example, when I was giving you the example of that Excel sheet, right? So let me just share my screen once again so that I can show you that one more time. All right. So you can probably see my screen. Yep. Okay. So coming to back to this Excel sheet. So like I told you that in this Excel sheet, you got a task, right? The task was that you have to convert this Excel sheet in a data like in this fashion. So this is a task, right? So if you are able to use your programming language to convert, or should I say, to execute this task using programming, that will be the place, or that will be the time when you have actually understood programming. That is how it works. Okay, so this is again going to be very, very important, because not only you need to learn how to program, you also need to learn how should you execute the logic that you have understood or that you are trying to execute in your program. And for this reason, we have multiple types of exercises present on the internet. Okay, so when you learn a certain programming language, you need to do some exercises in order to be very, very good at it. It's very similar to how we learned concepts in mathematics, and then we used to solve mathematics related questions which were present in our mathematics book. So just like that, programming also has many questions present on the internet which you can use or which you can solve in order to improve your programming life, or should I say your programming concepts or your computational thinking. So that is going to be another very important part. So if you are somebody who's currently confused on where to study from or what language to study from, then trust me, there's nothing wrong with it. Like I already told you, then my suggestion would be to start with C++ or Java. And if you're currently looking for a place where you can start learning from, so it depends on what type of person you are as well. So many people like to read from text-based material like books or articles or things like that. So if you're one of those kind of people, you can definitely do a Google search. You will find some really good blog websites where you can start learning from there. Or if you like to consume video-based content, then you can go to YouTube and maybe learn a certain concept from YouTube. If you're looking for a one-place solution for everything, then you can also reach out to edtech platforms like Coding Ninjas itself or any other edtech platform of your choice, where you can have a complete package of what to study and where to study from and what are the practice exercises that you need to do. So that can be something which can be really, really helpful to you. So the concept of programming is something which is having a lot of scope, irrespective of what domain or what branch you come from, because every single place or every single branch is going to use it. Okay, it is always and always going to be used. Even if you're coming from commerce background, there is some way, in some one way or the other, IT is involved in that as well. So this is a very, very big part about programming, or should I say this is a very, very big part about coding. Okay, so that is all that you need about coding. Like I said, you need to learn a programming language, and once you're done with programming language, you need to solve a few questions on it. So to solve a few questions on it, there are multiple platforms. Once again, one of the best platforms is Code Studio, so you can definitely check out Code Studio, and when you check out Code Studio, there you will see a list of questions. Okay, then you will see a list of questions, and you can choose any question of your choice and try to solve it. If you can't solve it, you can also see the submissions of other people. You can also get hints of how to solve that question. You can choose any language of your choice to solve that question, and that can actually help you a lot in order to improve your computational thinking. And the one of the very funniest parts is that this kind of exercise is only asked at the time of hiring. So now that you're only in your first year of college, by the time you get to third year of college or last year of college, where you will be sitting for multiple internships and placement opportunities, you will be seeing that companies are going to ask you exercise related question only. So they will ask you questions, and they will ask you to solve that question using any programming language of your choice. So if you continue with this practice of solving questions online on platforms like Code Studio, then you will be in check with the skills that are required in order to compete into these companies, and there's a very high chance that you will make up to this company as well. So that is how programming works in real life. I've already told you the applications of programming. So everything which is possible today, like I am able to communicate with you through YouTube, I am able to record myself, share my screen. You're able to use Facebook, you're able to use Zoom, you're able to use Twitter, LinkedIn, or even probably even if you're using your college's website, WhatsApp, Instagram, whatever we are using, it's all only possible because of coding. So coding has totally revolutionized our world. Remember, there was a time when we were all kids, we used to use Microsoft Office as software, right? Now we have those kind of applications on web as well. We have Google Sheets, we have Google Slides, etc., etc. We have Microsoft's own Office on the web as well. So all of this is only becoming possible because of coding. So coding is definitely something which has taken a very strong leap and is having a lot of amount of scope. Every single industry which had nothing to do with programming in the first place is now also using programming, like ticket booking industry. For example, travel agents. Previously, in the past, there was no IT related absolute installation of IT inside travel agent or inside travel agent industry, right? You suppose if you needed a train ticket, let's say 15 years past to today, what would you do? You'll talk to a travel agent. The travel agent will get some ticket for you. They will charge some money from you. You don't even know if they're charging right amount of money from you. But IT has done something which has introduced transparency among people. Now we can transfer money. I can transfer money to you in a fraction of a second using UPI and things like that. So that is something which is the very big application about IT. And the best part about IT industry is that it accepts people from all domains, from all engineering backgrounds. Sorry about this. So that is the best part about IT, and that's all I had to say. So if anybody has any questions for me, please go ahead, and you can put forward your questions so that I can answer. All right. So do we have any questions in the chat box? Okay, college course as C in first term. Should I continue doing that or skip to C++? Okay, you can continue with C also, but because if you learn C, you will learn that a lot of things that you're using or learning in C is the same thing in C++ also. So it's like C++ is basically addition to C. So if you know C, you know a lot of C++ also. Only C++ has some extra rules and regulations, extra things. C++ is only extra to C. So everything you're learning in C is also present in C++. And even if you start with C, making a switch to C++ is going to be very easy. So it's no big deal. You can start with C, and parallelly you can also do C++. So that's all right. The reason why I'm telling you about doing C++ is because C++ happens to be an object-oriented programming language, which is a type of languages that are used in the industry. So if you start with C++, you will also have the understanding of how to use object-oriented programming languages, which in this case, with language like C, it is not true. So C is not an object-oriented programming language. So you cannot use C in multiple applications, but C++ can be used because it is an object-oriented programming language. So that is the only reason why I was talking about C++. Otherwise, C is also great. You can achieve everything in C as well, like that you can achieve in C++, but it's easier to do it in C++. That's all I have to say. Any more questions? Once I start gaining a foothold in C++, should I diversify into another type of language? If so, what kind / examples? Well, if you get a strong foothold in C++, it's totally all right that it's like it's your choice whether you want to gain expertise in another languages as well or not. That is your choice. Okay, so even if you don't even if you don't get your skills in any other language, that is all right. First of all, that is totally okay. But if you are if you are looking forward to gain skills in any other type of languages as well, then it kind of depends upon your interest at that point of time. Then suppose you want to go towards web development, or suppose you want to go towards mobile application development, then depending on what field you're trying to explore, they will have their own sets of languages that you have to use, and then you can diversify into that kind of language. For example, if you're somebody who is having interest in web development, then probably C++ is not going to help you. In that case, you will have to learn a front-end related language and a back-end related language. So a front-end related language will be includes a language like JavaScript, or a back-end related language can also be JavaScript, or it can be like Java or C# or Python or something like that. So it kind of also depends upon what is your interest at that point of time, and it will help you like that. For example, in my case, the programming language that was taught in my college was C. But to be honest, I never liked C personally. So I tried to like C, but I could not. So I switched towards Java. I really, really liked Java. So I tried to gain my skills in Java. Once I was good enough with Java, then I wanted to explore other opportunities. Then I tried to learn a little bit about data science and machine learning. So when I came to data science, machine learning, I came to know that Python is a language that I have to use. So then I learned Python. After that, I was like, though, that no, probably machine learning is not for me. Then I was like, let's go towards web development. So when I came towards web development, then I started to learn JavaScript. And then I found out that I can write backend in Java as well. Now that I already knew Java, I started writing backend in Java, and my Java skills also became better. So it kind of depends upon what your interest is at that point of time, or what is the requirement that you are having at that point of time. So that is how you should be choosing the type of language that you should be taking. Otherwise, it's like your choice. Even if you don't diversify your skills in any other language, that is totally all right. It's totally okay. But if you're thinking, I mean, it is preferred if you do, but even if you don't, it's all right. Always remember that even if you have knowledge of multiple programming languages, always keep one programming language as your primary programming language. That's all I'll tell you. What is the ideal time should I take to learn C++? I think C++ is fairly easy, so it should not be more than 2 months. If you're like a absolutely beginner in C++, then 2 months is more than enough. 2 months is more than enough, in my opinion. Even if you can take more than that, that's all right. But see, 2 months is more than enough. How and when to start with DS and Algo with C++? Okay, so when you start with C++ as a language, you have to first of all understand the language, how it works, and what are the certain internal data structures that are present in C++, like what is int, what is long, what is short, what is boolean, what is pointer, how to reference a pointer, things like that. What is a class, what is a structure, what is a union. You need to understand some basic things about C++. Once you're done with that, you can start with DS and Algo. So that is the time when you should be starting with DS and Algo. And the question being how to start, then you have to learn about few basic data structures first, like arrays. Arrays would be one data structure which you probably would not come across in default C++. You'll have to create arrays and things like that. Once you come across what are these data structures like arrays, linked list, graph queues, etc., then you can start solving questions on these topics. So to solve questions on these topics, you will need questions on these topics. So to find questions on these topics, you can go and refer to any competitive coding platform like Code Studio, where you can find really good questions, and it can help you a lot it can help you a lot to improve your DSS skills in C++ or any language in fact. Sir, I already know mediocre level Python, which has easier syntax and method to code. So should I shift to other language like Java, C++? I would personally suggest, Mayank, that you should. That is really good that you know Python. But I would personally suggest that you can keep your knowledge in Python. You can continue coding in Python. That is fine. But learning a language like Java, C++ is going to be helpful for you in the long run. Now, why is that? Language like Python, which you yourself is saying that has easier syntax and method to code, it is because Python has a lot of freedom. It has given a lot of freedom to programmers. So in my opinion, Python is a programming language for those people who understand programming concepts really well. And the reality about Python is that it does not, for somebody who is starting their programming journey with Python, you miss to understand a lot of concepts about programming with a programming language like Python. For example, let us say you're trying to add two numbers. Let us say you're trying to add two numbers. So let's say you're trying to divide two numbers. Let's say you're trying to divide two numbers. So suppose your first number is 15 and your second number is 5. Okay. And if you divide them, then your answer should come 3, right? So 15 by 5 would be 3. But let's say that in Python, because we don't have something called type safety in Python. So suppose you have written your first number is equals to Thapar University, and second number is equals to 5. And then you're trying to find out the result as Thapar University divided by 5. Then probably it will give you an error, right? It will give you an error. So this error is coming when you're running the program. But when you're using a language like C++ or Java, this error will come at the time of compiling the program. Okay, this error will come at the time of compiling the program. Okay, so this is one of the best parts about languages like C++ or Java. They help you understand programming concepts towards a deeper level. So once you understand it, once you understand the programming concepts at deeper level using languages like Java or C++, it's going to be a cakewalk for you to switch to any other language. To be honest, because my first programming language was Java, it was very easy for me to switch to languages like JavaScript or Python in future, which I used to build a lot of applications. I just imagine had I started with Python or JavaScript, and I know people who started with JavaScript or Python as their first programming language, and they have issues in trying to understand the hardcore programming concepts when they're dealing with languages like Java or C++. And one of the most weird parts is that this is for Java mostly. When you join a major industry or when you join a major company, there's a very high chance that the code that you are going to write, be it in Python, be it in JavaScript, be it in Java, it is supposed to understand or it is supposed to fulfill all the programming concepts that you are going to learn in languages like Java, C++. So that is how it is going to be like. So that is absolutely very important, and that is the reason why I'm trying to suggest you why you should be starting with language like Java, C++. So what is the difference between DS and CP? I'm a beginner, so I find it very confusing. Okay, so let me just give you one example. So let's say that most of you have understood differentiation, right? We all have studied differentiation. So suppose if I give you an equation y is equals to 4x square, and if I ask you to differentiate it, so what will be the answer? 8x, right? That the answer is going to be 8x, right? So we all know that. So if I give you an equation y is equals to 4x square, and if I ask you to differentiate it with respect to x, then you will give me the answer as 8x. But suppose if I give you a second question, question number 2. Question number 2 is, given an equation of parabola y is equals to 4x square, calculate the slope of this parabola at x equals to 2. Suppose if this is the second question. If this is the second question, then how will you solve it? Probably in this case also, at the time of solving the second question, you will differentiate y's equation of parabola, that is y is equals to 4x square, and you will find 8x. Then you will substitute the value of x with 2, and then you will find the answer as 16. Right. So in this case, the first question, straightforward, told you to find a differentiation of an equation. In the second question, it did not tell you at all to find it. It did not tell you to define the derivative. It just asked you to find the slope. Now you use the concept of differentiation in order to find out the answer to the second question. This is the exact difference between DS and CP as well. Application layer, it's like application level. So the application of DSA is going to be in CP. So CP is competitive programming, where you are having difficult level of questions which are going to use the concepts that you have learned in DSA in order to solve them. Apart from that, CP also has a few different features, wherein in CP there are multiple people who are competing to solve a set of questions, and the people who solve it first, or should I say all the people who solve who solve the questions correctly first, and who solve the question in such a way that their solutions take the least amount of time, they get the maximum points, or they should I say that they stand out to be the winners of the competition. So that is what is the difference between DS and CP. Is HackerRank better or CodeChef for a beginner? Well, both of them are really good. But as a beginner, I think HackerRank can be a better platform because CodeChef can be slightly difficult for you as a starter. CodeChef is very good, but as a fresher, or should I say somebody who's just starting out, it can be somewhat difficult. Sir, I'm in second year. Am I too late to learn coding, or how should I get started? Okay, you're not at all too late to learn coding. When I was in my college, I'll be very honest. When I was in college, my branch was information technology, and by the time I had finished my first year and I was in my second year, I used to think that I have done a very big mistake by taking information technology because I could not understand coding at all. I just could not. I used to memorize coding solutions and go to my college exams and almost failed them. I used to almost fail my coding related exams, but that's all right. I kind of had this revelation that I have to start learning coding. So I started in the middle of my second year. And to be honest, and I think I made a great progress. So it's never too late to start programming. And I think you can definitely start even if you're in second year of college. That's all right. How big of a role do referrals play in landing a good job at FANG? Well, referrals do play a role. I'll not be dishonest with you. Referrals do play a role when it comes about landing a job in FANG, because referrals actually help the company to find good candidates with less effort. So referrals do play a big role. So it is now you will get referrals only when you have a good network. And where to get a good network from? A good network should come from your college senior network, alumni network, and your LinkedIn. So that's all. How should I get started with learning data structures and algorithms? I think I've already answered this question. Like I said, start with the programming language, then start with data structures. If you are then start like with data structures, like there's a certain amount of data structures only which you have to learn, like arrays, linked lists, tax queues, etc. So you can learn about these data structures by reading blogs or by taking a course from any edtech platform or by watching videos on YouTube. That is how what you can do, and then to become better and more proficient at it, just start solving questions on any online coding platform. That is enough. Sir, I'm good in Python and have basic knowledge in C++ too. So should I try to focus on C++ now and give command in it? I think yes. If you have good code in Python, that is good. That is really good. But if you have basic knowledge in C++, I think it's good time that you gain some command in C++ as well. Because the better you know C++, the better you will know Python also. You will soon yourself realize it. Because at the end of the day, Python language like Python is basically making tasks easy for people who understand programming concepts really well. So if you understand C++, you understand programming very well, and in that case you will be very good with Python as well. So what should be the roadmap for first year CS students? Learn a programming language. Learn a programming language. Start with learning a programming language, and once you're done with programming language, try to solve very basic questions on programming languages, like what is palindrome number, how to check if a number is palindrome or not, how to check whether a number is Armstrong or not, try to print some patterns. This is how we all start. Once you're done with that, then move ahead and start learning data structures and algorithms. That is what I will suggest. Why is that companies want you to know data structures and algorithms if the job you're going to get is development related? Because data structures and algorithms are used in development. Because data structures and algorithms are used in development. That is the whole point. How do I manage dev along with DSA? You have to manage. I mean, you need to have that willpower. I was very good with dev when I was in my college, and I used to manage my dev with DSA by giving like close to equal amounts of time. By the time you're in your first and second year of college, I think this is the best time to get to a sober level in DSA. By the time you come to your third and last year of college, in third year especially, try to do a little bit of development. And because your DSA skills should already be very good by the time you are in second year, in third year, even if you give like only 2 hours per DSA session, then that is enough. And then you can dedicate your time to dev. So in dev also, you can learn a specific technology like web or Android or machine learning AI, and you can dedicate like 1 to 1.5 hours every day, or depends on what type of project you are doing. So that is something you can do. How much time should I give to learn C++ each day? Well, it kind of also depends upon you, Mannat, to be honest, because every person has a different grasping and learning rate. So, but on an average, I think 1 hour is enough. 1 hour to 1.5 hours is more than enough. Is it good to learn a number of programming languages like C, C++, Java, Python, DS, Dart? Does it look good on CV? No, it does not. Don't do that. I mean, you can definitely do that if you want to, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary. Like when I was joining my job, when I was joining, I should not say job. When I was joining my first internship, then I was knowing only C++. Sorry, I was only knowing Java and Python. I was only knowing Java and Python. But weirdly, when I joined my internship, they wanted me to work on JavaScript. So that's where I learned JavaScript. And in the middle of my internship, my role got changed to Java. So I became better at Java there. And when I joined my company, where I'm working right now, then my role had changed to Python. So that is the reason why I got good with Java also, JavaScript also, TypeScript also, and Python also. So it kind of is like where the requirement is, like there is where you should try to aim. So it's not very necessary that you should try to master multiple languages, because it doesn't really help. It just takes a lot of extra effort. And to be honest, if you know one language very nicely, switching to another language will not be a big of a deal. You just need 5 to 6 days in order to grasp the syntax of that language. And on the basis of what you need to do in that language, you can do it in that language. So it's not necessary to learn multiple languages. Even if you know just one language and if you're really good at it, that is more than enough. If I do start with dev, what should I start with? Well, Siddharth, I think this is a question that you should ask yourself. You should ask what is it that interests you. Like in my case, I was really interested in web development, so I stuck to web development and I got really good at it as well. So this is one question that you should ask yourself. But if you ask me on the basis of industry wise, like what is currently in demand in the industry, what is more popular, what should help you in getting a job in an easier fashion, then in that case web is something that is king. Web is king. So web will help you a lot in getting a job, because web development related roles are very much in demand and right now in the industry. And the second domain would be application development, mobile app development, cross platform. So these two roles are very, very in demand. Third role will be machine learning AI role, but as a fresher, as a college fresher, it will be very difficult for you to get one, because companies don't want to hire somebody who is just getting out of their BTech degree to a role which is related to AI and ML. So being very honest, that does not happen. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen at all. It is just more difficult compared to getting a job in these fields. How important are projects when it comes to campus recruitments? Well, projects actually give the recruiters an insight that you are capable of working on a real-time project. So if your projects are good, I would see having a project is different thing and having a good project is a different thing. So you can have 10 projects, but they might not be good. Or you can have just one project and that can be good, which can help you to get a job. So having a good project is what that matters. So if you are having a good project that you can explain really well, that you can demo at the time of your interview, it can really increase the chances of getting shortlisted. Sir, how DS is used in web development, like front end or back end? Okay, let me just give you one example. Let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. Let me know when you can see it. Can you see it? I think you should be able to see it now. Okay, fine. So let's say let's say that you have a list of 5 cities. List of 5 cities. Okay, city number 1 is Mumbai. City number 2 is Pune. City number 3 is New Delhi. City number 4 is Kolkata, and city number 5 is, let's say, Chennai. Okay, you have 5 cities. Okay, we have 5 cities. Suppose if there is a user, user has to select 3 out of 5 cities. Okay, user has to select 3 out of 5 cities. Okay, so user can select any 3 cities out of these 5 cities. Okay, so how should a user select these 5 cities? Suppose there's a drop down one. Drop down one to select first city. Okay, similarly, drop two to select second city, and then drop down 3 to select third city. Okay, so there are 3 cities that a user has to choose, and there are 3 drop downs. Now we all understand what are drop downs, right? So we click on it and then we see a list of stuff. That is what a drop down is like. Wait, let me just show you with an example. So drop down example. So this is how a drop down looks like. We have all seen a drop down like this in multiple websites, right? So this is what a drop down looks like. Okay, so we have all seen something like this. So suppose if a user has to select 3 cities out of these 5 cities. So when a user selects the first city, suppose if the user is trying to select the first city, then a user must be seeing a list of all 5 cities. Then a user must be seeing a list of all the 5 cities which are present over here. So suppose if the user chooses Mumbai. Suppose if the user chooses Mumbai. Okay, so now the user has chosen 1 out of 3 cities, right? The user has chosen 1 out of 3 cities that the user is supposed to choose. Okay, so in the second drop down, should the user see Mumbai or not? The user must not see Mumbai. Why? Because Mumbai is already selected. So in the second drop down, the user must only see 4 options. Right? So in this case, we will have to use something which is coming from data structures and algorithms to filter out from the list of cities that city which is already selected. So this is one of the applications that we're going to use in of data structures and algorithms in front-end development. This is all front-end development. So this is one application which we are going to use in which we are going to use in front-end development, which is coming from data structures and algorithms. Now let's talk about back-end development. Suppose you have to add, let's say here there are rows, right? Let's say you have to add a few columns in this Excel file. Suppose you want to write a few columns in this Excel file. Suppose you have a list of 5 columns. So column number 1 is, let's say we have John, and then we have the class. So this is the name. This is the class is, let's say, 10, and the address is, let's say, Noida only. Okay, then call 2 is like, let's say there's another let's say Beatrice, and her class is, let's say, 7, and she lives in Gurgaon, or let's say Gurugram. Okay, then let's say column number three, which contains the detail of, let's say, somebody with the name of let's say Sheldon, who studies in class 11 and lives in, let's say, Pune. Okay, so similar, let's say we have 3 columns like this. Okay, and we want to add these columns in our Excel file. Suppose if this is what we want to do. Okay, so in this case, you tell me what is easier, or should I ask what makes more sense? Uh, Writing one line of code which can add all the 3 columns at the same time to this Excel sheet, or writing one line of code which adds one column only into the Excel sheet and running it 3 times. What is your answer? I can't see your answer just yet. So let me just stop sharing to see your answer. So what is your answer? Can somebody tell me? Anybody who would like to tell me? Requesting the management. I know you're trying to portray the question over here. So can you please speak up and tell me what the students are saying? Probably most of you would be agreeing with me that we should be having one second. Probably most of you would be agreeing with me that we should be having one line of code in order to execute all the 3 columns into the Excel file. That is what you would be agreeing with me, right? So as a backend developer, this will take less time. So what will take less time is writing one line of code which adds all, let's say, n columns into Excel file. Okay, so this will take less time than writing one line of code to add one column in Excel file and running it n times. So n times means, like in this case, we have 3 columns, so we'll run it 3 times. Okay, so in this case, like you can see, writing one line of code which adds all the 3 columns, or in this case, all the n columns into the Excel file, is going to take lesser time compared to writing one line of code which adds only one column in the Excel file and running it n times. So this is one logic which is going to come from data structures and algorithms, which is going to be written in backend type logic. Okay, so in backend development, it is very, very important that we write very, very efficient code so that the load that we write on servers is not coming up very fast. So one example is like, so whenever you are using, like very, very recently, we had Big Billion Days on Flipkart, right? And the Great Indian Sale on Amazon, right? So most of you would have experienced, if you were trying to shop on these websites, then most of you would have experienced that Flipkart was running slightly slower than usual days. Similarly, the case was also true for Amazon. So these websites, or any website which has a lot of load coming over it, will start running slower than usual. So this is because the backend is not very efficient. So in case of Amazon and Flipkart, because definitely the backend is very efficient, but the load is so high that it gets slow. But in case of a normal website, even when the load is not too high, but if your websites become slow, that is because your server is getting slow. Now your server is getting slow because the backend is not written in an efficient manner. Now the backend is not written in an efficient manner because good practices of data structures and algorithms have not been used. So that is how we use right practices of data structures and algorithms in backend as well. I hope this answers the question in how to use DSA in backend and frontend as well. What's better, learning both web and DSA, or having good command at either of the two? I think learning both is a better option. Learning both, especially DSA. How important is LinkedIn, and how should we effectively use it for our college life and beyond? LinkedIn is very, very important when it comes to the sake of networking. So see, what is the meaning of networking? Networking means getting connected to people and using your connections to establish, or using your connections to your own advantage in order to gain career opportunities or any other opportunities. So if you are in your college, you should expand your LinkedIn. Like, you should first of all write correct information on LinkedIn, put up a formal picture of yourself on LinkedIn, keep your LinkedIn always up to date, and try to be interactive on LinkedIn. Try to comment on people's posts, try to connect with people whom you think are at a good position in their life, or try to connect with those people who are doing what you want to do in your life. And only because of this reason, whenever in only because of this reason, whenever you will be seeing a career opportunity in that domain, you can ask them for some amount of help, also in our IT case, some amount of referral, which they can help you to get an interview in that company. So good practice about, or should I say, a good point about networking is that there will always be people who are more skilled than you, but you can take advantage of having a better network, and you can make this or bring this to your own advantage, because when you have a better network, you have more access to opportunities. Do you have to be from tier 1 college to join to land a job in FANG? No, you don't have to. My elder sister, she was not from a tier 1 college, but she works for Amazon, and she is in a FANG company despite not being from tier 1 college. So definitely you can have a job in any company by coming from any college. All you need is skill. How can we prepare for programs like GSOC? If you want to prepare for programs like GSOC, you should be very good with development. And in GSOC, you will have an opportunity to choose an organization or to choose a repository where you want to work. So whatever organization or repository you have to choose, make sure that you are preparing for the tech stack of that organization or that repository in advance, so that you can choose that organization at the time of registration in GSOC, and then you can perform really well there. So mostly GSOC requires good amount of development related skill and open source version control skill. I'm in second year, just started coding. Will I be able to crack third year on campus internship? Yes. Yes, you will be. You should just be consistent with your coding. If someone were to go towards kernel development, how should they go about it? You should learn operating systems really well. You should learn languages like C++ and C. These two languages will be very, very important. And apart from this, you need to learn a little bit of computer organization and computer networks as well, mostly operating systems. So yeah, that's what it should be. If you want to go towards kernel development, you can also have a look at the open source code of Linux and try to understand that code, and maybe you can take some references out of that code in order to create your own kernel out of it. Sir, should we make a LinkedIn account in first year? Yes, I made my LinkedIn account even before I joined my college, so you can definitely make it in first year. How can we be consistent programming, and how to take put time for that every day? Please tell. Okay, so you take out time by training your mind to take out time. I mean, you can never take out time if you don't want to take out time. Okay, so sometimes we want something, but then we don't do something because we don't put enough effort on it. So you have to, first of all, need to have that willpower that you have to take out time every day. And that's the only reason, that's the only way, that's the only, because see, everybody knows that they can take out time every day and become good at programming, but not everybody takes out time. That's because they don't have the willpower, or they surrender to something. For example, let's say every day you decide at 6 to 7 p.m. you will code, and suddenly your friend calls, bro, let's go to Domino's to eat some pizza, and you're like, it's fine, let's go to Domino's, I will code later. And then you come back, and then you're tired, and then you don't code, right? So in this case, your willpower is not so strong, where you should be putting time every day, right? So it is all the game of willpower only. The stronger your willpower is, the more time you'll be able to put up every day, no matter how hectic your schedule is. Roadmap for third year for on-campus internship. Okay, so for on-campus internship, I would say that be very, very consistent with whatever things you have written in your resume. Have at least one good project, and be good with DBMS and object-oriented programming. That is more than enough. And DSA and CP, I don't need to mention; they are always going to be there. So if you have all of these skills in check, that's great. And I think that was the last question that we have right now. So yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. In case if you have any more queries regarding anything which is related to IT world, or any career aspect that you're considering and you're having second thoughts about it, you can drop me a query on my LinkedIn ID. I'm just posting my LinkedIn ID in the chat box, so that you can drop me a text whenever you feel like. And yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. And yes, I think we can close it over here. So thank you very much for having me. I hope you found this session insightful and informative. And I wish you all the very best in whatever future aspects you're planning for yourself in your life. So yeah, that was it. Thank you very much for having me.